Good afternoon and welcome. It's May 17th, 2026, and you are watching Roasting the Press. My name is Chuck Black, and my partner in crime is Richard Gagnon. Richard, how's it going?
I am doing just great. It's nice out here in the Shuswap. There's a lot of tourists that came out this weekend, but it didn't fill up the campgrounds. Let's put it that way.
I noticed that there was a lot of tourists out on Manitoulin this weekend as well. I think the population doubled. That's according to Tourism Ontario. And because there's twice as many people on the island, the internet isn't as good as it was a week ago. So if there's any glitches or confusion going on tonight, frankly, it's all my fault.
Well, hey, how about that, huh?
Yeah. Shall we go on to our first piece?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it should be an interesting show.
I think it is too. This is something I had no idea what was going on. I call this episode Everyone Wants VPNs, Virtual Private Networks. These are the sorts of things Richard and I have recommended in the past for getting behind great firewalls or in China or in Europe, collecting news stories. I know that some of the news from Europe is censored, particularly things about that million-man march that happened in London a couple days ago, people protesting against Keir Starmer. But I didn't know how everybody was essentially assessing VPNs for their own nefarious reasons. Now, we're going to start with this. The March 27th, 2026 TechSpot post on the topic of using a VPN to hide your location could expose you to government surveillance. And according to this story, a group of 6 Democratic Party lawmakers are pressing the Director of National Intelligence, that's Tulsi Gabbard, to clarify whether Americans who use VPN services could unintentionally, I love that word, unintentionally, expose themselves to broader government surveillance under American intelligence laws. Now, the concerns center around whether obscuring a user's geographic location, which is what VPNs do, whether or not that might cause intelligence agencies to mistakenly classify your signal as foreign. This could potentially reduce U.S. constitutional protections against warrantless surveillance. So they are saying that if we don't know where you came from, you're fair game to have every word you ever say recorded. Now, according to the article, commercial VPN route internet traffic through servers that can sit anywhere in the world. That makes it harder for U.S. intelligence agencies to determine where a communication truly originates. And according to declassified guidelines cited in government documents, the National Security Agency presumes that a person whose location is unknown is presumed to be a non-U.S. person unless there is specific information to the contrary, which means that if you're in Philadelphia and you want to get something on Netflix in the EU that you're not supposed to have, the American intelligence network can spy on you as much as they want. Now, the Department of Defense applies similar rules in its own intelligence procedures. Now, this is according to the article. And I just want to say flat out, this concern is bogus. It's well understood that Western intelligence agencies operating in the Five Eyes network share cross-border intelligence information explicitly to bypass national restrictions on intelligence gathering. So even if they don't know where you are, they may be unable by law to receive it using in the United States using American technology. But they'll say, Canada, can you record that for us? Or Australia, can you record that for us? And then we'll put it into a big repository and we'll all have access to it anyway. So these concerns in this March 27th TechSpot post is essentially bogus. Now, at least according to the story, the core issues involve how agencies operating under authorities, such as Pfizer's Section 702, distinguish between domestic and foreign communications. Now, Section 702 is operating under a series of short-term extensions right now because it officially expired on April 19th, 2026. Now, because it's not totally expired, Congress has repeatedly passed last-minute short-term extensions, and the program has been in a constant state of near expiration for the last month. Now, this has created uncertainty about whether it's in effect at any given moment, but that's just for the politicians. For the actual spies, they record whatever they want, put it in a big room, and if it's not from the right country, they say somebody else collected it. And as of now, I checked it this afternoon before putting together this piece. Section 702 is still in effect. Now, I would argue that the real reason for this situation with Section 702 is structural tension built into the law's sunset mechanism, which is intentionally designed to allow periodic scrutiny without ever getting canceled. And for an explanation of the act, it's worthwhile checking out the April 25th Cali based on YouTube post under the title of Pfizer 702 explained warrantless backdoor searches of American data. And we're going to play that right now. Here we go.
FISA stands for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978, a federal law that establishes procedures for the surveillance and collection of foreign intelligence within the United States. It was enacted in response to government surveillance abuses during the Nixon era and requires a federal agency to obtain authorization from a Foreign Intelligence Service Court, FISC, to conduct electronic surveillance, physical standards, or collect business records related to foreign intelligence. Section 702, so that's what Trump wants extended, of FISA added in 2008 allows government to target non-U.S. persons located outside the U.S. for foreign intelligence without individual warrants using electronic communications. While U.S. persons cannot be directly targeted, their communications may be incidentally collected if they are in contact with targeted individuals. This provision has sparked bipartisan privacy concerns due to warrantless backdoor searches of Americans' data by agencies like the FBI. FISA was signed into law by President Jimmy Carter on October 25th of 1978. It created the FISC, a secret court that reviews surveillance requests. Section 702 is currently set to expire on April 20th, 2026, prompting debate over reauthorization. Recent audits show the FBI conducted over 200,000 warrantless searches of U.S.
What's ironic about this is that many U.S. federal agencies, including the FBI, the National Security Agency, the Federal Trade and Communications Agency, they have each long recommended VPN usage as a cybersecurity best practice. Cybersecurity experts recommend VPNs because it protects users from hacking, tracking, and insecure public networks because nobody knows where the signal's originating from. And now they're saying that if you use what we recommended in the past, you could be subject to warrantless surveillance. Richard, what do you think about that barful gab?
Oh, yeah, scary, isn't it?
I think they're using that as an after the fact justification for what they've been doing for 20 years.
Yeah, and they're just trying to reinforce the fear. That's all.
Yeah, they're supposed to confuse people so they don't do anything untoward, or they don't do anything out of line. They're going to start complaining about things like the Tor browser next. They're going to start complaining about people who do anything wrong. It's going to strike fear, uncertainty, and doubt into their hearts, and they will be afraid of collecting any useful information that hasn't been originally published on CNN.
So the moral of the story is have no fear. Just ignore them.
You've said this before, and this is the first time in a long time I agree unequivocally with what you're saying. This is propaganda, fear, uncertainty, and doubt intended directly to confuse you.
Yep. Yeah. I just keep doing what I want to do, and if something happens, I will tell people that something happened and that they are in outside of their jurisdiction.
I think that's fair. My concern is that government agencies, you and I have talked about this in Canada in the past. I think the U.S. is going the same way. Government agencies get to decide what they want to decide.
Yep.
It's our responsibility to ignore them, but they certainly don't have a mandate to carry on the way they've been doing.
No.
But what are you doing? You have something in your hand.
That's my remote start for my generator.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
This whole episode has 3 VPN stories. I want to move into a Canadian VPN story. To me, it illustrates the fact that VPNs were the universal access codes to secret information, dark news stories, and pretty much anything you wanted to if you knew how to use it. And the Canadian government thinks this is so too. Shall we go on?
Yes, absolutely. I want to know.
Yeah, this story starts with the May 17th X post under the title Tech Giants Threaten to Exit Canada Over Bill C-22 Privacy Demands. And according to that post on X and other posts that we're going to get to in a few moments, a Canadian government bill, Bill C-22, introduced middle of March 2026 by Public Safety Minister Gary Andresanji, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, is a scary bill. It requires electronic service providers to enable access to data, all data collected for warrants, and retain metadata for up to a year. This is officially to target crimes like child exploitation, but unofficially, we've talked in the past about each and every one of us commits 2 or 3 felonies a day. This is in case they want to go back through our past and find out if we've done anything wrong, if we're like in the trucker convoy or something like that. It also notes that companies, including Apple, Meta, NordVPN, Signal, and even Canadian firms like Shopify and Windscribe VPN are warning that the legislation forces backdoors into the programs, and these backdoors weaken security, prompting exit threats. Not for the security. These companies have threatened to leave the country to protect their encryption and no logs policies. A whole bunch of companies have decided they want to leave Canada if Bill C-22 becomes law. Now, U.S. lawmakers and privacy groups have raised alarms over Bill C-22 cybersecurity risks. And while law enforcement is pushing for the tools to combat rising digital crimes, the bill now faces substantial public backlash and the possibility of amendments in committee. Now, that doesn't really seem all that bad, but we got to go into a little more detail first. Companies expected to be affected by the legislation include Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Meta warned in this email that came out about a month ago that the legislation could force backdoors or the installation of spyware and would make the data less secure. Apple says the legislation could allow the Canadian government to force companies to break encryption by inserting backdoors into their products. This is something Apple will never do for anyone except Palantir, it seems. We know the American government has backdoors in most tech giants' software, but they don't want to do it for the Canadian government. However, Canadian VPN provider Windstar and I think it's a European messaging service, Signal, or maybe it's US, but they have both threatened to relocate existing offices outside the country. For Windstar, which is headquartered in Canada, that means they're leaving the country if this legislation is passed. Now, I can't note that even the bigger tech companies are complaining about this. Shopify CEO Toby Lutke thinks there is so much nonsense in this bill that it may well end up dealing a tech blow to Canadian tech viability. It may destroy a whole Canadian industry. And my favorite VPN, NordVPN, warned they would remove our presence from Canadian jurisdiction before complying to protect their no logs policy and their encryption. In the US, even the chair of the US House Judiciary Committee and the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee are also now investigating Bill C-22, according to this post on X. And here's an editorial against it from one of my favorite editorialists, the official Mario Zalea on TikTok. And his, I think it's the May 15th post. It's called Bill C-22. Carney government wants to force every telecom and tech company in Canada to store your metadata for 1 year. Here's the piece.
Our Liberal government is building the biggest surveillance system ever seen in the Western Hemisphere. In fact, the EU and the US both rejected anything similar to this, and the only countries that have something close to it is China and Russia. It's called Bill C-22. Watch this. The article that you see above me is extremely important, and it's not for the reason you think it is. It's the people who wrote it. Above, the National Observer, they are an ultra pro-liberal publication, and even they're against it, and it gets much worse. So they said, kiss your online privacy goodbye with Bill C-22 Canada. The person who wrote it, Supriya, she was the former senior advisor to the Prime Minister, to Justin Trudeau, specializing in national security and foreign interference. She isn't some Joe Blow. She is, by every means imaginable, more red than the color of the shirt that I'm wearing. An ultra pro-liberal person that is warning you that your privacy goes out the window. But hang on, it gets worse. Successful entrepreneurs are already posting online saying my business with a run rate well into the 7 figures will be forced to exit Canada if this bill passes. That's just the reality. One of the greatest entrepreneurs in Canadian history, the co-founder of Shopify, Toby, said C-22 is looking like a huge mistake. It worries me a great deal. There's so much nonsense in there that it may well end up dealing a death blow to Canadian tech viability. In this company, you may never have heard of it before, but they have 100 million customers. They are based out of Canada. They said we won't be far behind if C-22 passes. In its current state, VPNs would almost certainly require us to log identifying user data. Signal isn't headquartered in Canada, so they can just shut off Canadian servers. But our HQ is. We pay an ungodly amount of taxes to this corrupt government, and in return, they want to destroy the entire essence of our service to basically spy on its own citizens. Not happening. We'll move our HQ and our taxes elsewhere. And this was the death blow of it all that started everything. Signal, if you don't know what that is, it is an encrypted app. It is a non-profit. The majority of members of parliament, they use Signal. and they said they would pull out of Canada if they're made to comply with this new Bill C-22 lawful access bill. Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, it literally says it turns them into spies for the government. US Congress literally warned that it violates American privacy rights. The European Court of Justice literally struck this down in 2014, and they said this is a disproportionate violation of fundamental rights. No Western country has ever gone this far. Mark Carney and the Liberals are turning our country into a surveillance state. Insane.
Comments?
Yeah, well, they can do whatever they want as far as I'm concerned. I just ignore them. They have absolutely no control over the people, and they're starting to really panic about that. So they're using this fear tactic.
I would argue that while those sorts of scare tactics won't work for small players like you and I, they could force Shopify out of the country.
They could, yeah. And of course, that would be a devastating blow to the economy, because all of a sudden all these people are out of work.
Agreed, 100%. I would also argue that many of the browsers available today online have built-in VPNs, and that would make it easy enough to access an American VPN or a European VPN that doesn't have the backdoor to the Canadian government. At the very least, it would give us the ability to re-engage with Signal.
Right.
So there are always options, but it really sort of frightens me how far this seems to have gone. I notice a lot of things going on here. A lot of this seems to be a rehash of Bill C-2 that was canceled in committee a couple of months back. That bodes poorly for my perception of what the Carney government's trying to do. You do it once, it's an accident. You do it a second time, it's what you intend to try to do.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the entire government system is going to fall apart very quickly.
Yeah.
So, and you know, people think, oh, Carney's in power. Well, no, Carney's not in power at all. He has no control over the people. So as far as I'm concerned, no, he's not going to be affecting the people.
He does send money out to people, extra couple $100 every couple of months. There was a gas refund for our taxes a month or so ago. There was a couple of other things. But you're right. He likes to pretend he's in charge, but more and more people, particularly out west, particularly in Alberta, are mostly starting to ignore him.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I've been ignoring the government for a long time.
I know that. I think you're very. I don't know. I find it problematic. I know how these things work. You go.
Yeah. Well, I basically, a lot of people, you know, they can't understand why I filed, why the social insurance number that has been assigned to me is being filed on a regular basis. That's because it's a dead corporation, and I just basically do that because I am the beneficiary of everything that comes out of it. So, and that's the government that thinks it's got control over me. No. I've got control over the government because I'm taking all this stuff that is free. And of course, they expect me to fill out their census forms. No, I just write down on top of it, return to sender.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're saying that while the Canadian government is indeed an illegitimate citizen, or it is an illegitimate authority, nothing wrong with filling out the forms if it makes you some money.
Well, you got to realize that this talk about money, that you keep on using that term is just basically getting that rainbow currency to be able to be used for barter.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I'm not going to, I mean, I played the lottos and things like that. And if I happen to win and I win a lot of money, a lot of their stuff, that's fine. Then I got more stuff to barter with.
Yeah.
So, and I can also give it away to those who seem to worship it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really difficult for me to be able to accept this nonsense about the government trying to control me. No, they're not going to control me at all.
While the government may not have enough power to control you, or most of the 40 million people who are now in the country, the government does have enough authority to shut down certain businesses.
Oh yeah, and fine, shut them down. But then of course they're going to kill themselves, shoot themselves in the foot by doing that.
Yeah, good point. I can't help but think of the consequences this bill would have on Canada's tech industry, given the fact that Evan Solomon wants to make us a leader in AI development.
Yeah.
Those two things are definitely contrast.
Whoop-de-doo, huh?
Well, that to me that means that nobody is really in charge there. That to me means that Carney's not in charge.
Oh,
Nobody's thought through the consequences of everything.
He's definitely not in charge of anything. He's just basically one of those puppets.
I hope he's more than that, but I fear you're right. I absolutely fear you're right.
Right. Yeah.
Shall we go on? You go.
Let's move on to the next one. We both agree that Carney's not really in charge.
We do. Here's the summation. Why does everybody hate Bill C-22? I built a graph comparing the promise to the reality, the idea of the metadata retention, the forced backdoors, the ability for ministers to order pretty much anything they want, the lack of privacy, and the threats by some fairly major corporations to leave Canada if the legislation is ever enacted. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. According to the April 15th, that's over a month old at this point, Canadian Constitutional Foundation post under the title Explainer Bill C-22 increases risk of surveillance, state, and government spying. The Canadian Constitutional Foundation believes that Bill C-22 represents a significant expansion of legal powers in Canada. And while it narrows some of the overreach of its predecessor, Bill C-2, which we mentioned earlier in this discussion, Bill C-22 continues to raise constitutional privacy and cybersecurity concerns, particularly regarding metadata retention, encryption, and secretive ministerial orders. At the very least, if you put an intentional backdoor in a piece of software, that makes it easier to put the second backdoor in, and that makes it to the point where almost everybody can get their data from you. And I don't remember a week that's gone by over the last year when some news report hasn't come out about, Canada Revenue Agency data breaches, Government of Canada data breaches, local police department data breaches. There are days when I think the government is probably the least able to deal with our data. But I could be wrong. After all, supporters argue that Bill C-22 modernizes Canada's investigative tools, aligns with international partners like the US, which believes it's unconstitutional for them, and the European Union, which doesn't like the idea either, And supporters also argue that this legislation helps law enforcement respond to digital crimes efficiently, which is probably the truth because, police now work in quasi-secrecy and they don't have to justify anything, and it doesn't even have to show up in court. Nobody has to say anything. Critics raise concerns over things like privacy risks from mandatory metadata retention and potential warrantless access. That's another one of the things Bill C-22 allows. Warrantless access. There is also questions of cybersecurity vulnerabilities if companies are forced to weaken encryption or create backdoors. I mentioned that earlier. If you get one backdoor in there, it's easier to create a second one and a third one. And pretty soon, everybody gets to see the data. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I also find a really broad definition of electronic service providers. And this definition potentially encompasses many online businesses. Notice Shopify, notice VPNs. There's probably a lot of things in there we don't know about. I think this is a backdoor into most of the available data on Canadian citizens. And the federal government says it's not, but I'm thinking at this point, they are lying. They are lying liars. And finally, I question the need for secret ministerial orders, which could bypass independent oversight, which would bypass independent oversight and reduce government transparency. And to be fair, there's a lot of problems with government transparency these days. It's only natural that there may be more coming down the pipeline with really terrible legislation like this. Now, finally, privacy advocates warn that the bill could create a comprehensive surveillance map of Canada's digital activity, exactly like Bill C-2, which dropped off the face of the earth for the very same reason. Overall, and given most of the current concerns were also brought up months ago, in Bill C-2, it seems that the Carney Liberals are very much concerned over tracking every activity Canadians engage in. I don't like what the Carney government's doing. I think they're lying to us about their ultimate motivations. I think they perceive of us as children who they must guide to the promised land, just like Mao did with his Chinese citizens, or Stalin did with the Soviets. Richard?
Yep, and they're trying. They're really trying hard. But
yeah,
they need to have that fear factor in the population. I don't think they have it.
You're saying that the legislation doesn't matter so much as their continued attempt to implement the legislation, which frightens us.
Yeah, well, which frightens the people who don't understand it. Of course, the corporations are always going to be fearful because they're registered with the government, and the government can take away their permission to operate.
But how about perhaps? Okay, go.
In my case, I'm not registered with the government. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, and of course,
I was going to say, but Meta has demonstrated that it will also do whatever it wants. It opted out of Bill C-18, and it officially, anyway, doesn't allow news on any of its platforms anymore.
Right. Exactly.
So this may not be restricted that the small individuals like you and I. It may begin an exodus of IT expertise and banking expertise and people concerned about their privacy. They may all end up leaving the country over the next 5 or 6 years.
I don't think we'll lose that expertise at all. I think that expertise is going to go towards the criminal aspect.
Yeah. You think we'll give up honest work and we'll start calling grandmothers to explain that they need to give us $5,000 a month, or else CRA will cancel their account?
Well, yeah, because these people who have been able to do all this stuff for the government are going to say, well, if we're not going to make money from the government, then we'll just go and do it criminally.
I note that I think about 100 people have been arrested and convicted of taking COVID era grants for not working while they were working.
Yeah, exactly. All those things. Yeah, of course.
If the laws are not clear, easy to understand, and if those laws don't have the consensus of the people start working their own game.
Yep, and the government can't do anything about it. When you're using the word the people, the government has no control over the people. They have control over citizens and slaves, but they have no control over the people.
So, I would argue that the government doesn't have enough soldiers and police to have direct control over all the citizens.
There is that too. Yes.
I would also suggest that the Canadian government may go the way of Greece. When the banks collapsed in Greece, the entire populace went gray market. They started selling things outside the banks. They stopped paying taxes, and like 60% of the economy in Greece is untrackable these days. People are surviving. People are doing well, but according to government data, the economy is only 40% as large as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. And that's absolutely true. So people in Greece basically took over everything, and they just ignore the government. And the government is attempting to get back to that old control game, but they're not going to be able to do it.
And with that, I would conclude that even though I keep saying, "Are you sure?" I'm not sure it's possible. In the final analysis, there are explicit recent examples demonstrating your correctness.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going to see the same thing happening here in Canada. We're already seeing it because this latest census 2026 is not going as well as the government would like. People are just completely ignoring this. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, those government idiots are listening to us right now. They're going to say, "Hey, you're lying. We're going to send the hockey player and knock you down because that's not true."
I'm okay with the government saying I'm lying. I'm okay with the government telling me what's really going on, providing documentation, evidence, and a logical argument. But if they send the hockey player up to beat me up, I'd be less impressed with their openness.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So
you go.
What do we do? I mean, I just basically like following my philosophy is the government doesn't control me. I can ignore them. They can send their goons out to try and beat me up, but that's not going to control me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't buy into this entire system anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I don't blame you. I'm trying to make a little extra. I'm trying not to say cash, but I'm trying to make a little extra to make my life a little easier.
You want those?
That puts me more locked into the system than you.
You're just trying to make more barter notes. That's all.
And I accept that. The money itself is not valuable for anything, but there is perceived value for barter.
Yes.
It's not like 50 or 100 years ago where the American dollar in particular was supported by gold. I read a story just before the Civil War. If you panned for silver in the Klondike or anywhere else and you took it into the assayer's office, they would directly melt it into silver coins, which you could take out and use for currency.
Yep.
I think that's something they canceled back in the 1870s or so. I'm not sure when it was canceled, but I
Right.
was shocked and appalled by what an easy system it was. It's supposed to be the poor man's farmer's currency, and it was very effective at being that.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. And and I've still got my gold, and I've got my silver and all that stuff. And
Kind of heavy gold. I've got some silver. I think silver is a good thing to have right now.
yeah, well, I mean, the gold I have is not very much, but the thing is, because of the fact that margins on gold are going to be negligible as far as I'm concerned, but the margins on silver are just really taken off.
Yeah, I can see that.
So,
I hope so. There was a part last November or so when gold was up at $150 Canadian. It's gone down about a third.
You mean silver?
Yeah, silver. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't like Bill C-22. I know an awful lot of other people in Canada who don't like Bill C-22. But as of now, the Carney government can pass whatever the hell they want.
Yep. At least for now. At least until people start walking across the floor again. The other way.
Yeah. He who lives by the floor crossing dies by the floor crossing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Should we go on to our last piece?
Absolutely.
This is yours. It's about Pfizer and cheese, I believe.
Oh yeah, I remember that story. Yeah, that was really interesting when I saw this. I don't know how true it is, but
Okay.
Let's take a look at it, and let's try to understand the American cheese system and why would we want their dairy products up in Canada. Anyways,
Here we go. May 6th, 2026. Mongo Minds on BitChute post. Pfizer controls U.S. cheese. Here we go.
Want to know why everyone's getting sick? Watch this.
Did you know that Pfizer makes 90% of the cheese in the United States? Cheese is one of the most consumed foods in the world, especially in the US. So if you control cheese, you control a massive part of the food supply. And Pfizer quietly sits in the middle of it. To make cheese, you need just 4 ingredients: milk, salt, cultures, and rennet. And guess who took over the rennet industry? Pfizer. About 90% of all cheese in North America uses a genetically modified version of rennet produced by Pfizer. Real rennet comes from calf stomachs. Pfizer's version is made by inserting cow genes into genetically modified fungus. And then we wonder why half of America can't tolerate dairy. Digestive issues, inflammation, hormone problems. Meanwhile, countries that use traditional rennet like Italy don't have these problems. So the next time you go to the grocery store, look for traditional European cheese.
Now, if you don't already know, Big Pharma owns Big Food. And how do we get sick? 95% of disease comes from food. So it's in their direct interest to make us sick through food so that they can double down through their profits in the drug industry. This is why I push local farmers so much. A lot of people think it's going to be more expensive. You're going to save money. And there is nothing more expensive than your health. There is nothing more peaceful and satisfying than knowing that my 18, 16, 6-year-old and my 50-year-old husband, as well as myself, are eating clean, delicious, God-made foods with real ingredients that are not hurting our body.
Wow.
there you go.
You don't know if that story is true?
I don't know for sure if that is what Pfizer owns and if they can control it.
I did a quick search while we were watching the video under the topic of, does Pfizer own most U.S. cheese? And I came up with a 2024 article from biocheck.com, industry news, which, let me pull it up. It's hard to get the second one here. Stop the screen. And the short answer is, holy crap, you are absolutely right. But according to this piece, there we go, there's BioCheck. And according to BioCheck, 90% of U.S. cheese contains GMO'd products made by Pfizer. This is exactly like what your video said.
Yep. Now the thing is, though, is they're trying to push their American dairy products into Canada.
Yes,
Do you
they
still
are.
want that? Maybe we can allow them, but we have to say you can't have GMO.
I think that's probably a good idea, but I don't know what the legislation is in Canada. I assumed we're mostly lockstep with U.S. regulations.
Well, the thing is that the Americans are really pissed off about the dairy products being charged such expensive tariffs to come into Canada.
Oh, wow.
And that's one of the things that Trump was trying to get rid of.
Yeah, fair comment.
So anyways, let's not let the Americans win on this one. Or basically, if it says product of the U.S. or if it's got any of those ingredients, GMO ingredients in it, then just don't buy it.
I also think it's worth noting that I've come across a lot of legacy media self-appointed experts who argue that theirs is the only right news. And those things you find on TikTok or Instagram or on YouTube are generally not representative of what's actually going on. And I suggest that, well, maybe the legacy media isn't all that representative of what's going on. Like any smart person, we are obligated to do our appropriate due diligence on any piece.
Yep.
And I can't help noting that there's like 400 stories. Children's Health Defense. Let me pull up this piece again. There was a whole bunch of stories talking about GMO'd cheese owned by Pfizer. If you go down here, there's the Children's Health Defense story on the topic. Pfizer in your cheese, a story on LinkedIn. An MSN story from a couple years back saying Americans did cheese after learning Pfizer ingredient is now found in 90% of them. Lots of stories. The problem with cheese, how Pfizer hijacked the cheese market. The hidden GMO ingredient. Principia Scientific International did a story about how Pfizer got caught. So I would say this one specific article is well validated.
Good. I'm glad.
And that is one of the things we can do with something as simple as a Google search.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I'm very cautious of nowadays on these stories is that a lot of them look like they're created by AI.
Yes.
So, and of course, AI and ChatGPT or some other AI is creating the scripts. It's very easy to tell if it's AI generated.
What do you need to know to tell?
You just listen to the script and they're going to be pronouncing words incorrectly.
Yeah, good point. I do that too, by the way, but it's a good point if something is really obvious.
This is really obvious. I mean, the way that, and it's always the same words in all the scripts. So AI is not able to determine the correct pronunciation of a word. So whenever I hear that, I say AI generated, and I toss it aside.
Huh. So you're saying that unlike the legacy experts who claim to know everything, it's actually easier to recognize AI created scripts and graphics than you would expect.
Yep. Yeah, because the scripts, when they're reading the scripts, when AI is reading the scripts, it doesn't pronounce the words correctly.
How about that's fair? I accept that as a given.
Yep. Yeah, I'm noticing that, so I'm throwing away a lot of stories that I see now.
That makes sense. Any other comments before we wind up?
No, let's wind her up, and I'm gonna have a bite to eat.
You are a smart man. But first, before I let you go, tell me what's on your plate for the next couple of days.
Yeah, so tomorrow I'll be doing a longer story. I don't remember what it is, but it'll be at 7:30 tomorrow morning. And then Tuesday I'll be doing 8 stories, and then we'll be doing the last week today, which you'll have some comments on.
Yeah.
And then Thursday I'll be doing my longer story. And Friday I'll be doing the 8 stories again. All at 7:30.
Your post every morning. It's starting at 7:30 Pacific time on the channel scrolling across the screen.
Yep. Yeah, we are not TV. I just basically post where things are, and you can click on the links there. You can also make comments there if you want.
That's a good idea. Comments are important to understand what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, for what people are questioning. So,
as for this show and the other show we do through Freedom Forum, we normally record every Sunday night at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on a variety of internet platforms, including the one you are watching right now. And we republish the show the next day with notes on our Substack page at chuckblack.substack.com. And most of our stories slide behind a paywall after a month online. So if you'd like to maintain access, the easiest thing to do is to sign up for a monthly subscription. $20 a month, $160 per year, gives you access to archive posts, includes a lot of in-depth articles not covered in our regular programming, and helps Richard and I eat. We like eating. We also have a Substack app to help you access Freedom Forum stories from your phone, and subscriber chat so you can tell us what you really, really want. Now, my name is Chuck Black, and I directed this show using StreamYards, which I believe Richard and I both use and both like, and both recommend, but only if you sign up using either Richard's link or my link. It'll be in the show notes. And we get a little bonus out of this at the end of each month to help defray some of our costs, and that's appreciated. If someone covered our costs for our StreamYards, that'd be helpful. Now, Richard, very good comments tonight. I enjoyed talking to you, particularly the part about, particularly the conversation leading down to Greece is pretty much gone off the grid. I like that part.
Yep.
I
like it too.
And I believe that's all for tonight. Am I missing anything?
No, I think we got it all.
Then I look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 5:30 for another episode of Roasting the Press, and at least this Tuesday at 8 p.m. for another edition of Last Week Today. We may be rescheduling Last Week Today to a different time because I've taken on a day job. I might talk to everybody about that in the future, but it actually relates to my skills, the things I've learned over the last 2.5 years with Freedom Forum, with Richard, with Roasting the Press, and with Last Week Today. So I look forward to seeing if I've actually found out something useful. Anyway, good night, Richard.
Good night.